You've been counting down the days until your last batch of that washed Mexican coffee arrives. From one of the few roasters you truly trust with Light Roast, their take on this bean is pure magic. You vividly remember their approachable gala apple acidity finish and decent body from the last bag. Definitely light, but not lacking in flavor. Whether you swing by their cafe or have it shipped, the anticipation builds. The day finally comes. You eagerly open the bag and that intoxicating aroma rushes out. You can't wait to put your tried and true 116 Kalita Wave recipe to test again. It really brings out the best in this coffee. You're itching to play around with that new brewer you treated yourself to last week too. You set the grinder to the setting that you jotted down in your coffee notebook weeks ago because you're such a badass and nerd depending on who you ask. Maybe the beans seem a little stubborn going through the grinder, but you don't think much of it. You're locked in on your pour-over ritual, everything feeling dialed as the brew drains through. Taking that first anxious sip, you can't help but wonder, did you nail it or totally screw it up? Sip after sip, it's undeniable. This cup completely off. Like a gnarly mix under ripe veggies and acid that just won't quit. You're crushed and so confused. Was it your brewing technique? Some weird bean defect? Or did your beloved coffee roaster severely under-roast this batch? Now what? All right. So, now what? What do you do with that coffee now? That's one of the things that I'm sure is going through your head when you get a coffee that is extremely underdeveloped, is lacking body, is lacking actually flavor too. It actually extracted okay. I was really surprised about that. But it's not tasting like the coffee that you're normally used to, so to speak. So what do you do about that? I know first thing you're also thinking about this coffee is that pissed either at the roaster, the beans, whatever. You paid for this, right? You paid for this coffee. And you're trying to figure out what's the best thing to do. Do you consult a roaster immediately? Do you play around with it? Do you continue to be pissed off? What do you do about this? Because you like light roast, but it's too light. It's not where you want it to be. So I would say you can probably more so use this as a creative teaching moment to yourself. You know, if you've already written down some things about this coffee, the notes that you like, the even brew ratio that you use. So in this case, I think the best thing to do is to try everything. Try it all. Try drip, immersion. Try to stir if you don't stir to agitate the grounds. Try immersion brew, French press, different ways and all that stuff. Or even AeroPress, Bonavita, Clever Dripper, even the mocha pot if you want to. You gotta keep going after it. You gotta see, to me, if you can really get the best out of this coffee. So that's where you're at with this. So I advise you the first thing you should do after you get pissed and mad about the whole situation is figure out what's the next thing that you can do. Because, you know, at times, I go through it too, to where we're so stuck in our ways. We're so used to doing things in a way to where, okay, here's this ratio, here's this coffee, let me taste it, let me move on. So it may give you a new opportunity again to start this brewing journey again. So different brewers, different methods, different things that you've probably seen online. So I will discuss what the best method for this or underdeveloped coffee that I've found to work the best. And I'm actually shocked that it has worked out this way. So let's go on and talk about the next thing. All right, everybody, let's talk about this coffee real quick. All right, this is a organic Mexican coffee, roasted light. Whole bean reading is, let's see what we're working with, 99, which is off the charts, and the ground coffee is 104. So at least we know that we roasted it evenly. But let me tell you a little bit more about this coffee. This coffee was purposely roasted that way to see if we could get anything useful out of this coffee. So 5-minute roast, well, 5 minutes and 30-second roast. 5-minute first crack, and then 30 seconds of developmental time, which is nothing, which I'm surprised my grinder didn't break. So what do we do about that? that's really where we're coming from with this stuff. Is like, let's go beyond being pissed about this. We can talk about that later. But I think one of the biggest things to take away is that how can we extract this coffee for it to really taste well? As you saw in the video, I was able to actually extract this coffee, which I was actually surprised. But even if you do extract something perfectly fine and you're tasting what you're tasting of it being underdeveloped or under extracted to your taste that you're used to, we have to do something about that. So I did brew that coffee at 212 degrees, which is pretty high, which I think that probably did help with the extraction. So what other things can you do? And I think that's what we're going to come up with. I think some things that you can do is go ahead and agitate the grinds to bring up the developmental aspect of that coffee. You can, of course, increase the temperature. You can go grind. You can go finer on the grind, or you go coarser, just to kind of just test to see what you're working with. So that's what we're working with right now. And then that was just pour over. Of course, you can try again with immersion, different techniques that you usually do or probably do that you haven't done in a long time. Because one thing I have noticed is that people who normally do specialty, if they're not just doing espressos, that they tend to lean towards pour over. So this is where you can bring up some of your immersion brew, your AeroPress, your French press, and kind of get an idea of what you're really working with to see if you can bring the best out of the coffees. And I think that's going to be extremely important as you analyze, dive in, and really figure it out. Because that's what we're talking about. Even though the roast isn't ideal, I think we can probably bring something out of it than what we did get out of it before. So let's talk about the grinders. So let's talk more in depth about the brewers, okay? So what did I figure out about this coffee? I figured out that immersion brew for this very light roast is the best. The reason why I'm saying that is because in this case, it was lacking body. That's the biggest thing that I've noticed with this coffee. It was lacking body. Of course, if you do a lot of agitation, it does increase the acidity in it. And I don't think that's what it needs because it's very vegetable type of tasting. And increasing the acidity is not a pleasant thing. But I think having that body really showed me that this is what this coffee needed in order to kind of balance it out, salvage it the best way that you could. So AeroPress worked out really well. French press also worked out pretty well. Bonavita actually worked out pretty well too. But I think the AeroPress shined a little bit better because you can play around with agitation a little bit, do little to nothing, or just play around with it a little bit more, agitate the grinds a little bit more, depending on your taste, depending on your grind setting and all that stuff. I did use a drip coarser grind, so that's what I use. But one thing that I did notice when I was actually trying out these different brew methods is that I wanted to try just one more to see if I can actually get that body, because a lot of times with immersion brews you do get the body from the coffee. You lack the clarity, but this coffee, since you're trying to mask the vegetable type of taste, you want that body. And the last method that I did try, which actually worked out to be the best method, is the cold brew. So I did a finer grind, a drip grind, and then I also did like a coarser grind for typically. So when I did that, waited about 24 hours, 18 to 24 hours, and then went ahead and filtered it through a coffee filter. And then I went ahead and heated it up. Why not? Because I wanted to see what it tastes like, at the temperature that I normally drink coffee. And it was awesome. It's still a little bit more acidic than what I liked, but it has so much more body to the coffee, and it helped give you more so that illusion of like, this is what I used to taste with this coffee. What does that mean for you? And again, I'm not saying that you don't be pissed of the situation. Sometimes we have a bad days, as roasters. And again, that's my job, right? That's what I'm trying to help you out with in order to give you the best product every single time. Probably the person didn't clean the roaster. Probably had a bad day at home. We don't really know the situation. But the crappy part is that they did give you that coffee. So what you can do is, of course, do what you did this time. Just practice, play, get as creative with the process, go on that journey that you can in order to see if you can bring the best out of this coffee, salvage it the best as you can, right? So one thing you can do is talk to that roaster, talk to them about the things that you have dealt with the past roast, see if they come clean, you know, but just at least let them know that you weren't happy, satisfied with the coffee that you did get, that you did pay for. Or you can just move on, find somebody else, you know. But do realize that we all have our bad days and good days and all that stuff, and we are dealing with humans. So, but I hope that you did get something from this, and I do hope that it's helpful to you, you know. So one thing that I have realized that people will probably tell me about in the comments or whatnot, or probably not, we'll see, is that you don't have all this gear to really assess what the coffee tastes like. You don't have a refractometer. You don't have a roast degree to determine if the coffee was, you know, roasted the way that you remember last time. No, you don't. And that stuff is quite expensive. The refractometer was about $800, and then something similar to what Roast Right is. And you've already spent a lot of money, right? So the best tool that you have is your palate, your notes, the things that you are accustomed to, your senses. And that's the biggest takeaway, you know? You should have or feel very empowered that you can tell if something is wrong with your cup of coffee. So trust yourself, believe in yourself, and then go from there. Use it as a creative moment to have fun. So that's what I got for you today. Let me know what you think, and then we'll go from there. So talk to you later. Bye.